On today's episode of Locked On Mariners, I'm going to try my hardest to not say bad words. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everyone, it is Monday, September 26, 2022. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, the Locked On Blowing 9-Run Leads podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you want to hear from us even more, consider signing up for our Patreon. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode, wherever you're watching or listening to this. And on the show today, we're going to get Colby's thoughts on the Luis Castillo extension, since he wasn't here for the emergency episode on Saturday. We're also going to cover some scenarios for the Mariners to clinch a spot in the playoffs this week, because even after yesterday, they ended up wiping a number off of their magic number still. But yeah, I think you know what we're unfortunately starting with today. The Mariners lose 13-12 down in Kansas City after jumping out to an 11-2 lead. They give up 11 runs in a single inning. The last 820 teams that had fallen down to a 9-run deficit or larger had gone 0-820 until yesterday. So yeah, that's how we're doing.
History.
That caps off by far the worst road trip the Mariners have had all year. Yeah. The magic number went down to 6. Like I said, that's the only positive. And even when that happened, I was just like, I don't care. Yesterday sucked. Yesterday sucked so bad. I felt like I had my soul ripped out of my body. It was, you give your thoughts here, because I'm so done with this team right now. Tomorrow I'll be happy and positive again, but today I hate everything.
Well, because tomorrow we're not recording a show, so if you had the thing ready, you could have put it out today, but whatever.
I feel like the timing of that, though.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't think anyone would want to be hearing that. By the way, as Colby is alluding to here, we're going to be dropping part 1 of our special episode with your guys' messages about what the Mariners making the playoffs means to you tomorrow, and then part 2 will be dropping, I believe, on Friday. So yeah. Anyway, Colby, what were you thinking yesterday? Just what was going through your head? What's going through your head now?
Jared Kelenic looks pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean,
if he doesn't lose a ball in the sun, the game's still 11-5. The Mariners probably win. We're not having this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor dropped one in the sun too that cost a run, and it's kind of a bummer. Luis Castillo makes his first start, and I'm not saying Castillo was particularly good, but he certainly didn't get any help from his defense. There was just some uncharacteristic mistakes from the team early. And they didn't play well. And then even the big inning they had, it was, I think, 6 or 7 Kansas City walks, including 3 with the bases loaded. It's one of those things where you're sitting there like, well, this isn't good. Like, they're beating a bad team because the bad team is literally beating themselves, but you'll take it. And then, whoops, nope. I think the 11 runs was scored on, 5 walks, 7 hits, no home runs even, which made it even more devastating somehow. It wasn't quick, right? It was a slow, drawn out process.
How long was the inning? Do we know?
I don't know. I stopped watching after the blooper got over Francis head. And by the way, Ty France at third base, you see the downside. There you go. He's not good. Thankfully, I think he had a pretty good series. I know he had a good game on Sunday offensively, at least. So at least there's that. Mitch, got a hit, and then had one of the worst at bats I've ever seen in my life. Just kind of the typical Mitch Haniger story right now. Jesse Winker actually had a decent series before, his former teammate broke his hand, I'm assuming. So that's a bummer.
That's weird, right? That they said bruised wrist, which
I
that I
assume that
mean
was the swelling.
the way that they were testing it, like he said he couldn't feel anything. To me, that
Yeah,
indicated broken hand right there.
Jesse
But
walked off the field immediately, didn't even attempt to go to first base. Um, I just assumed that the swelling was too much to get a good X-ray. That was my assumption. So yeah, of course, Cal Raleigh then leaves the game. If things weren't bad enough, Raleigh has to leave the game with a thumb injury because I guess you just had to keep him out there on an 11-2 game, just like you had to send Luis Castillo out there for another inning for literally no reason whatsoever. Um, and it's just one of those things where it's some weird choices made yesterday at 11-2. Why isn't Abraham Toro playing third base? Why isn't Dylan Moore playing third base? Like these are the things that you want to do because in an 11-2 game, it's all about, it's just all about run prevention at that point. You don't care about scoring another run because 11 should be enough. So why didn't you take those guys out? I don't understand, Scott's line of reasoning there. Is it because it was only the fifth? Who cares? You just talked about how much your team needed a day off and they're going to get one today, thank goodness. But if your guys are dragging that bad, why not take this opportunity to protect some of them, like Cal Raleigh? Or like your $100 million pitcher who you just like, oh, I guess we have to get 5 out of him. And then not even that, not only that, you send him back out there to start the 6th. Why? What is the benefit of him
yeah,
getting 3 extra outs for you when you have a rested bullpen and a day off the next day? Just weird. Scott didn't really manage this game. It feels like he didn't really manage it to win, but he also didn't like. It was just a weird like decision process. Like, were you thinking long term, Scott? Because if you were, you would have taken Cal Raleigh out. You would have taken Castillo out probably after the 4th, but certainly after the 5th, you probably would have, at very least, you would have moved Ty France to first base, taken Santana out, and put Dylan Moore or Toro at third base, right? That helps you both in the short term and the long run. So, at the end of the day, Scott can only do so much. His pitchers walk 7 guys, and it's not like he went to Diego Castillo or somebody who's really struggling. He went to, Swanson and Festa and Brash, and they just didn't have it. None of them did. And it's for Swanson, it's been a few times out in a row now that he's been like that. So it's just weird too that they've been willing to use Paul Sewald earlier and earlier in the games, and they didn't use him at all yesterday. When it felt like, okay, well, at 11 to like 6, like, yeah, this is the time you use Sewald, keep your 5-run lead. And then, at that point, momentum stopped. But once there's a tipping point, right? And these type of things where like you can feel like game's over even though you're still up. And for me, it was after Brash's second walk is like they're gonna blow this. Like the snowball is running down the canyon too fast, and there's nothing Scott can do to stop it right now because he's not playing this game like it's an 11-8 game now or an 11-7 game now. He's still playing it like it's 11-2, which I don't get. But again, there's only so much you can do. Scott Service can't just tell the guys to throw strikes. It's not like he was telling them not to throw strikes, so it's a bummer. These things happen to even really good teams. I mean, the 2001 Seattle Mariners, we all remember that Cleveland game. And we all know that team didn't accomplish anything. So clearly, because the Mariners blew this lead, it means they suck. It's over, like abandoned ship. And no, it's like I said, it sucks in the moment. Anger is totally natural. Yes, they need a day off. I think Mariners fans in general need a day off.
oh,
Because
I do too.
that was a
I
tough
do
road
so
trip.
badly.
That was a tough road trip, and yet you shaved 4 games off of your off of your win total because thankfully Houston decided to show up this weekend after taking Thursday and Friday off, and you happen to win one of those games where Baltimore lost, and that's a twofer. So as frustrating as it is, the team is still in remarkable shape to make the playoffs. And what this bad road trip really cost them, it's not going to cost them a playoff spot. It's going to cost them a chance to win the 4 seed. And now Seattle and Tampa are kind of like hot potatoing the number 5 seed back and forth to each other, trying not to go to Toronto is what it seems like. So we'll see. But, magic number is 6. It's just almost impossible to fathom Baltimore not losing 3 games down the stretch here and Seattle not finding a way to win 3. It just seems impossible.
Yesterday, I was incensed. Today, I would classify myself as more so just salty. But I want to talk about my feelings in just a moment. Real quick, though, a reminder this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. That's linkedin.com/lockedonmlb to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Okay, so I wasn't even necessarily mad at the team yesterday. I was kind of more so mad at the baseball gods because it never feels like this team can play a complete game. And yes, my feelings should ultimately be directed towards the team because they didn't execute, they didn't perform. But it's just like, really, like you finally get offense. You get 11 runs, and it doesn't matter how you got them. The fact is you got a ton of runs. Get 11 runs. That's good enough to win pretty much every single game that you play in. 99 out of 100 times, you're going to win that game if you score 11 runs. And then just the pitching, which has been immaculate all season long. It's just awful. No one can find the strike zone. No one's missing bats. Matt Festa, Matt Brash, Eric Swanson, who's been incredible this year, obviously has kind of regressed as of late, but still, like, these guys, like, you're telling me this guy, like, none of these guys can get one out against the Royals? The Royals? Like, this would be annoying no matter who it came against. But at least I would understand it a little bit better if it was the Astros, if it was the Dodgers, if it was the Braves, right? And they've already blown a lead to the Braves, right? And in that moment, yeah, that was really annoying, but also it's like, hey, the Braves are really good. You're going to get got like that sometimes. This is the Royals, dude. Like the Royals, man, with Kyle Isbell and Bobby Wood Jr. has been pretty good this year, but like, come on, man. Seriously? Like, how? How is that possible? How is that possible?
What team was it against again, Ty?
The Royals?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like this is a weird spot for me because I get to be the voice of reason here.
Yeah, we're reversing roles on today's show.
Quick, reverse our screens. Put me over on your slot.
Here we go.
There we go. All right. So it sucks, but it's not that big of a deal because, again, thankfully Baltimore lost. It's a bummer. Your magic number should be 5. But it is 6.
Tie.
Yeah, nobody cares. Yeah. You're not good at that. I am. That's my thing.
See, the Mariners are stupid. They're dumb. They're idiotic.
See, you guys say I'm negative. I mean,
I'm trying. What's
that guy
what's the
over
other
there?
Thing? What are the other things Colby says? Help me out in the chat. Moronic. Yes.
Stupid. Just flat out stupid.
Flat out stupid. Dumb. Nobody cares.
Ty sucks. The basics, the classics. Yeah, okay. Well, whatever.
All right. Let's reverse roles again here. Let's get hashtag positive on the show for a second.
Oh, yuck.
See, I flip him back to the Colby Pat Note side, and there it goes again. Could you imagine if the Orioles won yesterday? My God, the reaction on Twitter. Jeez, I think Twitter would burn down if that happened.
It wouldn't have been good.
So the earliest that the Mariners can clinch now is Thursday. The Orioles, of course, play tonight against the Red Sox. They're starting a 4-game set at Fenway. So obviously rooting for the Red Sox tonight. There's a couple scenarios for the Mariners to clinch on Thursday. I would say neither of them are very likely, but we should acknowledge them anyway here because we're getting to the point now where any if something drastic happens on one particular day, it could change everything. So the Mariners would have to go 2-0 tomorrow and Wednesday, while Baltimore gets swept, and then Baltimore's loss on Thursday afternoon would clinch for the Mariners in that event. The other option is the Mariners go 2-0 again on Tuesday and Wednesday, while Baltimore goes 1-3 versus Boston, and then the Mariners clinch with a win on Thursday night. I think that would be the most preferable option because we want to see the Mariners clinch actually on the field. Of course, we will take it no matter what happens at the end of the day, but
especially after watching the last 10 days.
Yeah, especially after watching the last 10 days, I just kind of want to just get in, and I don't care at this point. I just want to get in. Let's not get too cute with it.
Do you think the Mariners, once they do clinch, do you think that they'll play better? Or to put another way, do you think that part of the struggles is the pressure?
Yeah, so you're basically kind of alluding to the fact that, or to the idea that maybe they are in their heads a little too much.
They're pressing.
Yeah, they're pressing. I think so. Maybe a little bit. And obviously there's, injuries on injuries on injuries. That's also derailing the whole thing. But
right. And I mean, it's worth noting that your pitching, which has been so good all year, is cracked the last,
That's
week.
True.
I mean,
that's a really good point.
They went through the entire rotation. Nobody had a good start. Gilbert was okay, I guess, the other night, but I mean, you went through the rotation once. Nobody acted as a stopper, right? Nobody was particularly good. Nobody in the bullpen was outstanding, amazing. Even Andres Munoz, in his outing on Saturday, he was okay. Wasn't great.
The 9-1 game in Anaheim? Who pitched that game? Who started that game? Was that Gilbert?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Gilbert was really the only one that had a really, really good start for you on this road trip.
Right.
So.
It's a couple in a row for Castillo. Castillo from the stretch and Castillo in the windup are two completely different guys. You get somebody on base and Luis Castillo turns into Marco. It's not to take shots at Marco, but
yeah,
it's not great. Not great.
So if I had to guess though, well, actually, let me answer your question again real quick. I think they will end up playing better because I do think at least a little bit of this is mental. I think guys are pressing because, like you said, from the pitching side, and pitching is definitely mental. The mental side of things definitely can impact you pitching wise. Yeah, I think there's they're not stupid, right? They know what we know. They knew that they had a really good opportunity to even clinch on the road trip, and it just
Well, I think they want those home playoff games.
I'm sure there's a little bit of panic that seeped in, there, even though it shouldn't really at the end of the day, because we're gonna say, the math is not on Baltimore's side. Honestly, I'd be more surprised if the Mariners didn't make it outright than if they didn't win a single game from here on out and still made it. That's how much the odds are just kind of stacked against Baltimore right now, because Boston isn't a pushover. Even though they're not a playoff team, they aren't a pushover. They still have a pretty good offense. They're going to have to go play the Yankees, and they're going to have to play the Blue Jays. So, and I believe all of those games are on the road as well. So, they are going to win some of those games. That's just the way that it is going to be. But I wouldn't they're 11-12 this month though, and they haven't been playing particularly good baseball. Aside from Thursday and Friday against the Astros when they shut them out back-to-back nights. But I can't envision them winning 7 games here.
No, I just think, for the Mariners, for the players, they're still humans, right? I mean, they understand the pressure. They understand, the idea that, we were struggling and then we lost Julio and Gino, on back-to-back nights, and we have to step up and we're not only chasing this wild card, we're chasing the wild card one. We want those home playoff games. We want to be that team that brings playoff baseball back to Seattle. And I do think that there's you grip the bat a little harder, you grip the ball a little harder, you kind of second guess things that you would never second guess. Like, do I charge this ball or do I stay back and just play it? Like, how do I, the swing is like, well, Gino's out. I gotta hit for some more power here. I got to pick up the slack. And it's no, 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 no. You're hurting yourself and you're hurting the team. So, they may be major leaguers, but they definitely hear the noise. They see it. And I think to a certain extent they need to embrace it because, there's nothing endearing about pretending that you're not human. Like, oh, we don't even notice the noise. We don't even recognize it. Yes, you do. And it's fine to admit that you do. It doesn't make you weak.
Hey,
it doesn't make you
ignore the noise. No time to sleep. Go Hawks.
Yeah. It makes you, impersonal and separates you from the city and the fan base, which is not what you want.
Well,
So
Colby, though, the separation is in the preparation. So
yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about him on CTZ because I have something to say about that.
Yeah.
So
by the way, Mariners outscored Russell Wilson and the Broncos yesterday. Just want to let you know that. If the Mariners were playing the Broncos yesterday, they would have won.
They would have won.
Yeah.
Yep. But again, it's one of those things, it's okay to admit it and embrace it. Because they are playing for history and that does that does kind of weigh on you. It's may not be like baseball history, but it's Seattle history and being a part of that team that breaks that drought, that's going to get remembered. Like that is, like it or not, that is going to be part of each of these players' legacy, is that they were on the team that ended the playoff drought in Seattle. And they got to get there first. And I imagine it's weighing on them. I think the day off will do them a lot of good. I think getting back home will do them a lot of good. Hopefully the ballpark is relatively packed. I know it's Texas and it's, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the team's not playing well, but it'd still be good to see 30,000 people in there. Just try and, build this momentum back up, start turning it around. Gino Suarez is back, at least as a DH on Tuesday. It sounds like that's the plan.
So maybe that's what the Mariners were missing, right? The good vibes. Right.
Well, whatever it is, I hope they find it.
I'm trying to cope here, Colby. Just help me out here.
No, I'm not going to be your copium dealer. But no, I think they'll be okay. Again, it's just one of those things. I do think that there's some pressure adding up here. And then you add on top of it the injuries, then you add on top of it the natural fatigue of having played in 150 games, 52 games, whatever it is already. I do think all that's starting to pile up and it's probably feeling a little overwhelming. So it'll be nice for Seattle. Get back home, take the day off today. And hopefully, go play in front of a full ballpark and try to clinch. And also, I don't know if this is going to play a role or not. I'm just speculating, but the idea that Baltimore is going to play at 4 and you're going to play at 7 or 6, like there might be some pressure to lift it off when you look at the scoreboard and you say Baltimore's down, 6-2 in the 7th. And you're, it's 0-0 in the 3rd. Like, oh, okay, we have a real opportunity here. So I don't know, like if all that's going to happen. It's kind of reaching for things that we hope might be true because the team's struggling so badly, but it's possible, I think, and it's maybe a factor we're not giving enough credit to.
Well, let me say this. If you're hesitant to go to the ballpark because the team has struggled as of late, that's kind of ridiculous, right? This team is still in such a great spot to make history here, like Colby said. This is a team that's still most likely going to the playoffs, right? Like this is not, more likely than not still going to the playoffs. Like that,
right.
This
do yourself a favor and stop moving the goalpost.
Yeah, this team is still going to accomplish things that we wanted them to, before the season started, and that's ultimately what matters, right? That's the end goal, was in the drought and see what happens in the postseason. And at the end of the day, if they end up getting the 3rd wild card, they play arguably the most favorable matchup of the 3 that they could possibly play, right? So,
right. I mean, it doesn't mean it's easy, but
no.
It's better than the alternative. It just
I feel like a lot of positives to this. While this ultimately sucks, there are some positives that kind of just naturally come along with it.
Right. Not you'd rather have the 4. Let's be clear about that.
Yes,
we're not saying that we wanted the 6 all along, and I think the people who said they wanted the 6 all along were really just preparing for what they felt was inevitable. And maybe they ended up being right, but I just think they didn't want to dream on the floor because they were afraid of being hurt, which I don't get. That's part of sports, is allowing yourself to be hurt. But stop moving the goalpost on this team. Who cares if they get in at 85 and 77? Who cares? Like, they got in, right? And we know that they're better than an 85 win team. They just went through a slump at the end of the year. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things where, again, at the end of the day, who cares how you get in? Get in. That's goal number one this year. And everybody said it's a successful year if they get in the playoffs. We're counting that as a success. And now all of a sudden here at the finish line, it's, oh, well, is it really a success if we don't have home playoff games?
I mean, like, it sucks. Like, the opportunity was there. I get that. I get being disappointed about that because it was there for
They're doing
up for
it
grabs,
maliciously, though.
yeah.
And you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Like, there's
well,
very clearly.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, like, this shouldn't impact whether you want to go to games or not. Anyway, so I want to talk about, like, if you are planning on going or you want to be there for when they could potentially clinch. The day that I'm looking at is Sunday. And that's even being kind of the low man on the Mariners, thinking that they might only win 3 or 2 of the next 6. I think Sunday or Monday are probably the days there if they don't rattle off 4 or 5 in a row against Texas or Oakland here. So
I'm pretty sure I'm headed over on Saturday. So
okay,
hopefully that's the day, but we'll see. And if it's not, it's not. Just get in. Hopefully get healthy. Hopefully Julio can come off the IL after his 10 days. Hopefully Gino, can come off the IL tomorrow and not miss a beat and DH and provide some spark and some power and some threat to this lineup. But yeah, it's, we're not trying to sugarcoat things. It was a tough road trip. There's no question about it. And it pretty much capped off with like the worst loss you can possibly imagine. But I guess that means things can only get better from here because I doubt they blow a 10-run lead tomorrow. So I doubt they have one, but I doubt they blow it if they get one.
Don't challenge them, Colby.
You're the one that challenged them to win the wild card without winning a game. I'm just saying. So yeah. But anyways, we did have one more topic we wanted to get to, and we're near the end of the show. What was it?
So Luis Castillo extension. You weren't here on Saturday for the emergency pod, so I want to get your thoughts on that.
Surprise.
You were the one that decided to go to a charity
Ty is so
walk.
desperate. Ty is so desperate to replace me, but he knows he
I have the DMs to show people. I have proof this time.
I know.
I have proof.
Yes, I was a better person than Ty. I went out and I supported a charity on Saturday morning while he was sitting around, I assume, in his underwear, eating Cheerios out of a salad bowl.
Fruity Pebbles.
When the news broke. So yes, I couldn't get back home in time. I was at an Alzheimer's and dementia awareness walk. Got some lunch with the family and all that stuff afterwards. So yes,
what's the foundation that you were?
What is it? I had the thing here somewhere. I think it's just ALZ. I'll look it up. I'll put the details down below if you guys want to donate and stuff like that. But can't remember it off the top of my head. It's like the biggest event in the country, and it was just spread out all over the country. Gotcha. But it is for Alzheimer's and dementia. So that did that on Saturday. But anyways, Castillo trade extension. We can go over the Castillo trade again if you want. But
can we go back to the trade deadline back when they made the Luis Castillo? That was when
not the deadline.
That was the best our channel has ever been.
Yeah, not the deadline, but just like the day they made that trade.
Yeah,
which again, you're welcome. That was after they played terribly against Houston too. So see, things got better.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's a great deal. I mean, there's really no question about it. 5 and 108. That's right around where we thought he would go. I thought maybe he might get a little more than Robbie Ray, but I think we had both said 5 and like 125 max, but 5 and 115, 120 was probably more realistic. And he comes in at 108. So it's a really good deal. It's Castillo. He's a little bit on the older side. Fine, whatever. But you get him for the next 5 years. The deal starts after this year. So you bought out his arbitration essentially and bought a few free agent years as well. So in reality, the deal is, it's between Musgrove and Robbie Ray, and I think that feels about right. It feels about right based on where all those guys were when they signed their deals. So I think it's a good deal for the Mariners. Castillo gets immediate security. He's having his presser right now as we're recording. It's the biggest thing to me is that Luis Castillo chose to be here. He was a year away from free agency. He didn't have to stay. He could have gone out and tested the market and he would have gotten paid. And honestly, I have a sneaking suspicion he probably would have gotten more than this on the open market, assuming he had even a good year, not even a great year. But he chose to be here. He was traded here, and in only 1 month's time, he chose to be here long term.
Yeah, I think that's
And
the
that to me
remarkable
is the
thing,
biggest thing. Mm-hmm.
Like, he's been here for 7 weeks.
Yep.
And in that time, he's decided, you know what, I want to spend the prime of my career here.
Yep.
Like, that's not nothing. That's like that's actually really, special. That's really remarkable here because,
right.
Again,
we
that's
might
such
have,
a short amount of time. He's not familiar with this organization whatsoever.
No connection to the Northwest whatsoever. Nothing to the Mariners. I think we may have seen the first benefit of the Julio extension. We thought this was going to get done anyways. We just thought it was probably going to happen in the winter. So maybe Julio's extension had nothing to do with it. But what I think it does show is that the opinion of amongst players in Major League Baseball is shifting, and Seattle is no longer a last resort. Like, well, I guess if they're going to pay me 20% more. No, Seattle's becoming a destination for players, which is good. I don't think it's there yet. I don't think it means like, oh, Aaron Judge all of a sudden wants to play for the Mariners. No, I don't think it's that. But what I think it is that like these players, maybe not the elite players, but like the very good players, they now look at Seattle and they go, hey, we can win there. I can make money there. It's a great city. It's a great ballpark. The travel doesn't bother me as much because we're going to win. Like, I think that's the shifting tides we have. And I think that started with the Julio extension. But in reality, you look at the money that's being spent lately. You look at Robbie Ray, you look at Castillo, you look at J.P. Crawford, you look at Julio. Money is getting spent by this team on really good players. They have a very good young core. And, Luis Castillo recognizing that after just 7 weeks of playing here, I think that the biggest and most important piece of news from this extension. Obviously, it's great. Castillo is going to pitch here. He's a great pitcher. He's a fun guy. It seems like a perfect fit in this clubhouse. So that is all great news. But to me, the real story is that Luis Castillo chose to be here when he had no reason to choose to be here. And he chose to be here for quite a while. So, and he even took, I think, a little bit less than market value to do it.
Well, and especially when you look at inflation, Ben and I talked about this on the emergency show on Saturday that, I don't obviously see him in that upper echelon of pitcher like Max Scherzer, but also those guys make like $45-50 million a year now, but I think he's in like a tier or two below that. So, kind of going off of that, I wouldn't have been, I wouldn't have even batted an eye if it was like $30 million a year for Castillo. Like, I think he's worth that when you look at just the going rates for starting pitchers. So, $24.5 million for the free agent years and an overall AAV of like $21 million. That's a steal and a half for the Mariners. Obviously that's still, life-changing money for Castillo and his family, and congratulations to them and all that. But, I kind of feel like Castillo did leave quite a bit of money here on the table, especially with a year still out until free agency. And so, but that kind of goes into just, again, how remarkable this is that he picked Seattle and possibly left money on the table to stay in Seattle. We don't see that. We never see that.
Well, especially not from somebody who has no connection to Seattle, right? There's no hometown discount to give for Castillo, and the Mariners still got it. I think that speaks a lot to the culture and what they're building. And where players are starting to see this organization go. So, yes, it was a disappointing weekend overall. The Mariners did get one win that they ended up needing very badly. But at the end of the day, the arrow is undoubtedly pointing up for the Seattle Mariners. And players, not only in Seattle, but around the league, are starting to recognize that. And I think we're going to see the dividends of all the hard work that Jerry and Scott and both Scotts and Hollander and even John
Katie
Stanton, who I'm
McKay.
still on the fence about.
Yeah. But hey, like I said on Saturday, give credit where it's due.
No,
John Stanton,
No.
starting to put his money where his mouth is.
no. Do it this offseason, then I'll start to believe you.
All right.
Do it on players you don't have control over, then I'll
That's
start
true.
to care.
That's true. All right. Well, so just a quick note before we hop off of here. Again, no traditional episode tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be part 1 of our very special series in which you are going to run the show and tell us what the Mariners making the playoffs means to you. So look forward to that. And, again, if, this is a part 1 of 2. So if you don't see your video that you submitted, don't worry. It's probably in part 2. There were a couple of emails where people said that they attached videos, but there weren't any. So those folks, unfortunately, have been left out. But we had like 57 or so submissions that actually had videos attached that got in. So, yeah. So if you submitted a video, you're most likely in the episode.
Right. If you did submit a video and you don't see it in either of the 2 episodes, it means you didn't actually submit a video.
Yeah.
So you might want to double check. And if we have any stragglers, I guess we can put them at the end of regular episodes.
Sure.
Try and get as many of you guys involved as possible. But yeah, double check if you're not 100% sure that you sent a MP4 file to us.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on Locked On Mariners. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzalez, that's DANEGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode, and thank you again for making us your first listen. Now make your second listen the Locked On MLB podcast. MLB expert Paul Francis Sullivan brings humor, passion, and unique perspective on every team and the biggest stories around the league. Follow the #1 daily league-wide podcast, Locked On MLB, on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts, just like us. And with that, have yourself a beautiful baseball day. And I guess you guys will not necessarily see us tomorrow, but you'll see yourselves tomorrow. So see you then. Peace.